All right. Welcome back to another episode of Status Quotables. This is special edition. This is for my upcoming album, S.C.A.R.S and Neva Heal. I am MIC, and I have a special guest with me. I will let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
All right, hello, greetings, elevations. I'm Liz Maldonado, and I'm a school counselor right now. So that's kind of been my 9 to 5 the past, 10, 11 years. And in the last about 5 or 6 years, I've been taking more of a holistic and spiritual approach about things. And so it's been a great journey. So here I am. I love all the music that you've been putting out. So I'm excited to be here and kind of vibe with you and, talk about things.
I really appreciate it. And so, just explain to everybody, this project is a little different. It's thematic, and it's pretty much about mental mental issues and how you deal with them. And each song is kind of tailored to that mental and social emotional issues and how you deal with them. And so, showing that people can go through things, but also find their way out of the dark, as we'll talk about. What I'm saying in a little bit. And so, before I get started on that, what made you even want to go into counseling and dealing with people?
That's a good question. A lot of my students tend to ask me that, and I would say that I was always the type to want to look into the minds and behaviors, and always had that why people do this or why am I feeling like that. And so, right off the bat, when I was young, it was just kind of like I didn't actually know I was going to go to college. But when the opportunity did come, I just wanted to focus on psychology. And from there, I went into more of a community-based type of counseling and just intervention. And I found that, students are raised in schools for majority of the time, right? They're there for about 6-7 hours or even more if they're part of any type of extracurricular activity. So that is what made me get into the schools. Not only that, I also thought about like my own experience in school and the type of things that I experienced and what I felt I needed. And so I definitely wanted to give back. And so
Gotcha. Makes sense. And at the same time, when did you, like an old school question, when did you fall in love with hip hop?
Oh, wow. So my brothers back in the day, so I have older siblings, right? And so my brothers used to DJ, and, I would hear the songs, and my sisters were more into, the R&B genre. And so, that was pretty much it. My siblings introduced me to it, and I just fell in love.
Right. And so that's funny because one of my older brothers, he came in one day, and I was probably like, I don't know, like maybe 6-7 years old or something like that. And he was like, yo, I can rap. And he started saying this rap, right? And I'm like, oh, that's dope. I can do that. I can do that too. But the rap he was saying was like Fat Boys or somebody else. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't know because I'm like 6 or 7. So like that was probably like my first like love with it. You know what I'm saying? Besides like, a little bit, before hip hop, like a little bit Michael Jackson off the wall type of thing with those type of beats coming in, and then started hearing like Fat Boys Run DMC and all that stuff.
Yes, at the same here. So my brothers used to, like I said, DJ, and they would have the turntables in their room, and you would hear them scratching and doing all this stuff. And then they would have like, they would go to like parties, and their friends would, I guess MC and all of that. So it was cool to hear the stories, because again, I was too young to go, but I heard all of it.
Right, cool. And so, speaking of that, I sent you a couple of songs, right? And so I know I sent you S.C.A.R.S, Out of the Dark, and Why God. So let's just start with S.C.A.R.S. So what, if anything, well, did you like it first of all?
I loved it. I loved the fact that one of the things that actually came out to me was like, men kind of dark, and you rely on art.
Yeah.
And so it made me think of, the things that people do to kind of ease or distract themselves with what's really happening, right? And a way to cope with things.
Right. Yeah, and that's interesting because everybody has to find an outlet, and so I figure, so I started that way because I think that the stigmatism of men being like soft or whatever is hard, like you have to be hard, and so by figuring out an outlet for it, I was like, okay, cool. I'll just use my writing as a way for expression versus, I guess, outright crying. Because if you do that outside, like I said, wolves of the world would see you as fresh meat. So you definitely couldn't do that outside. So I figured out another way to get outlet, because we all go through things, but we're just taught to deal with it differently. Within that song, did anything else stick out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a lot. I got a whole list here because I tend to ramble, so I wanted to make sure I was a little organized. Okay. So one of the other things that I wrote down, it was a saying where it says the road less travel is where it will carry me.
Yeah.
Right? Did I say that right? Was that
road less travel is where it carried me. Yep.
Yeah, right. And then it was another part where it says, I know where I'm headed, but I'm still reflecting. And so those two parts, I feel like, it's kind of like that constant battle, right? It's kind of like, yes, we know that the road less travel is going to be that road where we're going to be, but we're still reflecting on the past, right? We're still reflecting on the things that has happened to us. Right. So it's a constant battle of like, okay, this is where I'm going, but hey, I remember this part. So then the question comes, all right, what am I going to do? Right? At what point am I going to say, okay, I'm going to take that road and I'm going to keep it pushing?
Right. And so, and like that's what I was thinking. And also I was thinking, because like in order for us to know, like to figure out where we're going, we got to know where we've been. Right. And so that's why we still, like in school, we still learn history, because we need to either learn from the past or the successes of people who've already done it. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. So I was like, okay, cool. So I got to think about where I've gone to be thankful for it, but also how does that propel me to the future? Because sometimes you see things that you want to do, or see things that you don't want to do, and you make a decision from there. And so, that was part of why I wrote that.
Yeah, you know what? And I think it's interesting that you say that, because we tend to do that, right? We tend to look back and kind of see where things were, right? To kind of see where we want to head. However, there's a part of us that forgets the part that's unseen, which is the spirit.
Right.
And so, and that's a scary road, right? Because that within itself, when we start to question things, or when we really start to tap in, we start to see that a lot of the things that we believed in, or a lot of the things that was taught to us, is not real.
Right.
There's a lot of illusions going on, that we're connected, and we're, we still have that cord. There's still an attachment there, right? And so, even going back on how you were saying how men are, supposed to have that poker face, as you said in the song, right? People don't realize that we are born, like we're all energy, and we have feminine and we have masculine energy. And when we don't realize that, that's where those, that idea comes in, like, oh, I have to be hard, right? Because I'm a man. Or as a woman, oh, I have to be submissive, or I have to have my voice this way, right? And I think that's part of the problem now in society, that we don't really embrace our feminine and our masculine energy that we all have.
Yeah, I think that people probably haven't, like tapped into understanding that both things live within there, and both things can be true at the same time. So that's also an inner struggle, that's also another thing that people deal with, where they don't really get that you can, have the masculine and feminine energy coexist, and there's times and places for both of them. But it doesn't mean that it makes you like soft, or it makes you too hard, or whatever. Like, all two things can be true at the same time. So I definitely agree with that. And I also like try to tap in with that particular song, and dealing with like trauma, right? And reflecting back on the fact of these experiences happen. So like in the second verse where I talk about like the police coming into my house at 5, 6 years old, and pulling the gun on me and my sister looking for a family member, right? And so with that being said, at the time I didn't really think about how it affected me, right? But now that I reflect, I'm saying, like all these traumas I experienced, they're reflecting who I am in the present, but holding on to these scars will lead you down the dark road if you let it, right? So I started thinking about that. So I know that you've had a lot of experience with dealing with different people when it comes to like traumas and stuff like that. So can you give us like some insight on like your idea of what you think traumas are?
Yeah. So, by definition, trauma is an emotional response, right? To a distressing situation. And you have different types of trauma. You have the acute, which is something that, happens one time and boom, there it is, right? Then you have one that's like the complex trauma. And that's more of like varied and multiple things put together. Right. Then you have the chronic one. The chronic one is more of something that's repeatedly and prolonged. So like domestic violence, or even, violence within the community, right? And all of that, when we experience all of that, there's a response, right? There's things that happen to us physically, right? Mentally and emotionally.
Right.
And so when it comes to ACEs, average childhood experiences, that right there, we all go through it. We all have it, right? So for those that may not know, actually the there was a study, right, with Kaiser, basically. And it was two men that made this study. And what they did was they studied, I want to say 17,500 people.
Right.
And it was questions from physical, mental, emotional abuse to incarceration to divorce. And what they found was that about 67%, I want to say, had at least one, right? And that 1 out of 8 had at least 4 or more. And what they did was they correlated that with like prediction of diseases, right? So they found that when you have 4 or more, you're more likely to get diabetes. You're more likely to get heart disease. All of those things, right? And even with 7 or more, you're more likely to have suicidal ideation. All of these things. And so what happened is this doctor by the name of Dr. Burke. Have you seen that TED Talk with Dr. Burke?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh man, you have to see it. She's amazing.
Okay.
She's a doctor, and I don't know if she's from Cali, but her experiences with ACEs.
You know what? I did. I caught a glimpse. I caught a glimpse of that.
You saw it? Yeah. So whoever's watching this, please go on YouTube and go watch this video, because she breaks it down.
Right.
She breaks it down very well.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that right here because I don't have all the notes.
Yeah.
But basically she did a beautiful job with describing it, and also talking about like, now that doctors and healthcare providers kind of know this, there's still no assessment. There's still no health screenings to really address these issues, right? And so what do we do now?
Right.
What do we do now? If I know that I've been in domestic violence, or I've been in a neighborhood where there's a lot of shootings and killings, and there's no, I'm not going to the doctor and they're not asking me these things and saying, hey, you should try to do this. No, they're trying to give you a prescription for whatever medication they think is going to be the Band-Aid for the issue.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, I took the test, right? And I got 8. I got an 8 on there. So I was like, oh, because like when you take this, it'll tell you like, okay, if you're above this, then these things are your factors, right? And so like when I looked, I was like, okay, a lot of these aren't my outcomes, you know, but one or two of them may be, you know what I'm saying? Like may have been like an outcome. And I was like, oh, that's so crazy. But it also tells you, like, I saw this other video that says you are not your number.
That's right.
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 And so,
right.
So yeah, that was that
it's
was
just that it's I think that these type of assessments, right, it's kind of like that seed, like boop, all right, here. This is what it is.
Right.
Now what? Right. Now what you're gonna do? Because when we're young, when we're children, we only have but so much control, right? Our parents or our guardians or whoever it is that's taking care of us really have the control of you know where we go. You know, what do we not necessarily what do we see, but more of a like, hey, you going to school, you going here, you going there. We're not necessarily having choices like we do now, like I'm about to get in my car and go to the store, or I'm gonna go to the park or to the ocean, right? We don't have that when we're young. Got you. And so with that, how do people like once, because I guess, you know, like one of the sayings I say is like once you have knowledge, you are accountable. So how do, like, once people gain the knowledge, what are some ways that they can like help themselves to, I guess, take a preventative measure on not going down the end results of having all these past traumas in their lives? Right. Well, you know, I think one of the first things that we have to do, which is something that I did, right, was to really be in the present. Like, yes, understanding that this has happened to us, but how do I feel now? Right. Yeah. And not only how do I feel now, where do I feel it? Right. And how does it feel? So if I'm feeling stressed out, right, or depressed right now, where do I feel that in my body? You know, is it in my head? Is it in my heart, where I will say the heart chakra, right? Where is it? Is it in my root chakra? Like, and how does that feel? Is it a heat? Is it a penetrating heat? Like, really tapping into yourself, I think, is the number one thing, because honestly, we could read books, we could watch videos for days and days, but if we don't take the time, at least 10 to 15 minutes out the day, to really talk to our bodies, to really talk to our spirit, we're going to continue to go in circles. Wow. So that would be my first thing. And, you know, and that's easier said than done. But I will also say that if you find yourself, and anybody finds themselves with feeling like, hey, I can't get up out of bed, I can't go to work, I can't take care of my children, anything that affects your daily life, that is time where you need to reach out for help. That is time. And, you know, it might not be necessarily a therapist. It might be just a friend, you know. Wow. So I feel like the first thing is really trying to figure out what's going on within you. Gotcha. Okay. And then from there, you seek outside. Maybe you seek outside help, like such as therapy, counseling, whatever works for you. Yeah, it's something that really talks to you, right? Because, you know, for some people, it might be their pastor, right? Okay. For some people, it might be a friend. For some people, it might be a therapist. And for some people, it might be themselves, right? They're more in tune, where they could find the answers within themselves. Wow. You know, they could find the answers because their ancestors are showing them what it is. Gotcha. And I think for me personally, that's where I'm at now. Gotcha. Okay. You know? You're on that journey. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. Speaking of that, like, so you figured that out and you're just trying to find like your way out of the dark, right? So there's another song on there I sent you, yes, Out the Dark, right? And so, you know, what are your thoughts on that song? Oh, wow. So, Out of the Dark. Oh, you got notes on now? You got notes on that one too? Okay, yeah. I told you, I ramble sometimes. So I had a couple. Let's go. Right. So, all right. So, again, so part of the song is like, I've been going through things lately, just trying to find my way out the dark, right? Yeah. And there's words that you said, like felt neglected, cell barely, your cell barely run, right? So like doing COVID. So yes. Talking about like your exactly. Right. Like the isolation and then the brain opening up. Right. which adversities, you know, will make us do that, right? It will
Right.
wake us up. And so, you know, that song kind of made me feel like you spoke on a lot of what people were feeling, especially during the pandemic, right? Even now, because it's not,
Yeah. It's not 100% over, right? Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I feel like this song was dope. I feel like a lot of people will resonate with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I broke it up into like, you know, it's 3 verses or whatever. And so I tried to always keep the theme of like, how do you find your way out of the darkest stuff? And so like the one part you was talking about was yes, like during the pandemic, you're like, okay, the only way you're going, like, the physical being with people is out, right? Like, especially at the beginning, that's out. You only could be with the people in which you are shut down with. So then you check to see if like who's checking on you, right? Because this is a time where like nobody can say like I'm busy. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody can say like this is a time where everybody was doing the same thing. They were sheltered in, for the most part, they were sheltered in a place somewhere, right? So now you take stock in that, right? You take stock in like, okay, so now who am I communicating with during the time where nobody can say that they're busy? And so then people that like, you know, you have put on high pedestals may now get knocked off that pedestal, or the realization in which who they are to you changes, right? And but you know, that was just my thought process. That was like one of the things I had to tap into with that. But I could, you know, maybe I'm off. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's something you felt that way or not.
Yeah, you know, yes, I could definitely understand with how you feel. And I will also add that maybe, you know, maybe it's the definition of busy, right? Because I also feel that, you know, with it being the way that it was, I feel like many people were busy, right? But it looked differently, right? Many people were busy in their mind. Many people were busy in their spirit. Many people were kind of like in a trance, right? Because for the first time, it wasn't really, yes, it was a 9 to 5, but at the same time, it wasn't the routine that was on a day-to-day or what we were used to.
The moving and the
Right. And so for me, you know, I was by myself.
Right.
I was by myself. And a lot of people were like, oh, that's sweet. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I got a house full of people, you know, or I had to do this and I had to do that. And, you know, for me, it was like, it was some hard times, you know. It was a lot of like how you said, like, isolating and but I also took that time to work on self. And it was a lot of people, you know, during the pandemic, when it first hit, were very, you know, emotional about it. And I would say that the pandemic was great for me.
Right.
Like it was so elevating for me.
Okay.
And I truly appreciate the experience, because I don't think that the way that I think now, or even the routines or the practices that I have now, would not have come like that if I still would have been, hey, I'm waking up, I'm going to work, I'm coming home, and like that's it.
Gotcha. That's interesting, because during this time is when I started back with music. Like it took me 10 years. I took 10 years off, you know, for various situations. Like it just opened, like in the song, like it opened up, and I just haven't stopped. You know what I'm saying? Like I just haven't stopped creating and being creative. And so like I'm thankful in that way. I'm thankful in the time I got to, you know, to spend with my kids, and you know, like that slowing down process, because they were entering, like my oldest two were entering middle school, and I was like, nah, they can't really go to middle school right now, you know, like which gave me like a relief, because I had a big, you know, had some anxiety about that. Like now they're going into a whole new situation, they're getting older, and it gave me a year to prepare them to go. And so they since went, and they're doing great, you know what I'm saying? And my youngest two, we just got that time. But like one of the things I did a lot was did a lot of music and a lot of physical exercise, right?
Yes.
That I normally wouldn't have, been able to have the time to do. And so I did a lot of walking and some calisthenics, stuff like that. And I just kept like writing and recording, and it just didn't turn off, right?
Yeah.
So, which is so crazy, hence why we're doing this. So yeah, I mean, like, I did that. And so I say that too. And I don't want people who were watching or whatever to understand, like, I became bitter over that. I just became over not hearing from people. I just became wiser on situations, figuring out and still working on what is my focus, what is my, what my focus should be, who my love should be, who I should be paying attention to. But at the same time, I always think about, since we're in the age where you can communicate with people in so many ways, for you to send somebody a text to be like, are you okay? Especially when people are dying.
Yeah.
It's very telling. You know what I'm saying? Like that part. That's all.
Yeah, most definitely. We definitely don't want to take a part of that, right? Because we're all collective, and that's why when things happen in the world, we're affected by it, right? We have an emotional response from it, right? Because we don't walk alone,
right?
So I definitely get it, and I think that going back to a question like, what do you do? These are times to, again, tap into yourself. This is, this was a time where you could tap into your childlike self, which is what some people say the closest you get to God, right? And so embracing that opportunity, but also, understanding that, yes, people were dying. Many, some of us had experienced our own family members and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's true.
And just having the understanding, I think is crucial.
Right.
I think it's crucial for elevation.
Right. And so that also is part of the the wrap up for that particular song, that even though these things are happening, solutions are there. You can make them through it. So you find your way out the dark, or some people are just beginning, some people are in the middle, and some people have found their way out the dark to other things. That's why I closed off the last verse about talking about health and what I needed to do to be better, and things I'm still working on to this day to close it out. So just for the inspiration and the motivational stuff, and actually in placement of the album, that's the second to the last song on the album, because I wanted to have that as a part of the wrap up. When you hear the whole project, it'll make sense.
And I think you did that well. Because really, essentially what you're saying is yes, where there's dark, there is light. Right. And this is what my light looks like.
Yep.
Right. This is
through the darkness. If you look for that light, through the darkness, if you can see that light, then you're gonna be good. Right. That's what I wanted to do.
That was dope.
And, you brought up God earlier, and it brings us to the last one I sent you, Why God, right? And so I know we had a little conversation about that the other day. So your thoughts on Why God?
Oh, why God? We talked the other day, and I have a very different stance on it, because for me, so you talked about I'll get into what you talked about and what I thought about it. So there's certain phrases that I wrote down, and it was figuring out the caste system, feeling forsaken, the suffering fight for independence, and you mentioned Emmett Till and Trayvon, and why God, let bygones be bygones, right? Destined to lose, and brothers killing own reflections, right? And then kind of ending it with not ending it, but towards the end it was God wanted freedom, right? Wanted us to have freedom. And so again, for me, what that touched on is again, what a lot of people, and I feel this was a dope song as well, because I feel a lot of people feel like this, right? There is a lot of questions why, God, why is this happening? Why do we suffer? Why did this happen to my loved one, right? And it's kind of personally, I feel I've asked those questions when I believed in things that were external, right? And so for me, God is for me, God is not anything external. God is
Okay.
me. God is
Right.
you. And
Right.
so,
Right.
or higher self. A lot of people have different words for it, and I feel like when I started to kind of understand and sit still and listen, right? Listen to God, myself, right? I started to understand why these things were happening, right? And for me, it was a lot of like, you know, within this realm, we all have a journey, and the journey comes with figuring things out, right? And that's not going to come easy, right? And so when I started to think about, okay, how do I play a self in this? Like, how do I play a self in my suffering, and what I wanted to do about it? I started to see outcomes. Okay. And that's what made me look at things a little bit differently. I started to see things more as energy instead of, I think one of the parts you put, I don't know if it was this song, but it was talking about, it was S.C.A.R.S. It was talking about human. Yeah. So for me, I started to, I switched my story and said, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience.
Wow, that's deep. I was Catholic. Right. Okay. Right. Got you. Okay, got you.
Right. And so when I switched my narrative, that's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Because I was sick and tired of being angry. Running around angry, and be very transparent. I don't know if you want to watch this, but I didn't have white friends.
Got it.
I didn't have, I had white associates as I started to get into the workforce. But I was tired of being mad at white people. I started, just being mad. I got tired of it. So when I started to change the narrative, I started to change how it started to change how I experience things and people.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? And so, like, when I wrote it because I wrote it in not just like my personal beliefs, but just also like things I think people think, right?
Yes.
Right, things I think people think, and like, why is this happening? And I also wrote it like as a questionnaire for people, oppressed people. You know what I'm saying? No matter what they look like, right? Like, okay, so why is this happening to me? And I see that, like, if you look at, for instance, if you look at things that are happening today, right? A lot of these things that happen today have been happening for the last 400 years, right? To oppress people, period. And so it's like, but then there are other groups of people, I guess, that these things may have happened to, but not as frequently and not all the time, simply because of the color of their skin or the social economic status, right? Either or both. So like, I was just like, okay, what if I can have a conversation with God? And I was a spokesman for people. This is what I would ask. You know what I'm saying? So I try to touch it. You know what I'm saying? I try to touch it in a whole bunch of different places. So
you did a good job. You did a good job.
I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? I just try to put my touch on it. And I like saying that's actually one of my favorite songs on the project. It's hard to avoid it. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to add that. I feel like things happen not necessarily. And again, it's my opinion, not necessarily to oppress people, it's to oppress spirit.
Okay.
Because again, there's a lot of things that we don't see that's happening, right? And for me, like, all of this stuff is a spiritual war. Like, it's a spiritual war. And that's why it's been going on for so many years. And this battle I can't lose, snap back from the trap. I got more living to do. It's magic, baby.
Right.
Like, it's magic, and that's what's wanted, However, it translates different in the material world.
Right. Okay.
Right? It looks different, right? But yeah, it's the mission to oppress the spirit, because we're magical beings.
Right.
But we're taught that magic is a taboo word.
Right. Like black magic
connects with all of that, and Man, there's so much magic within us.
Yeah, and that's the trick. The trick is to make you hate the things about yourself that are special.
Right, exactly.
And so, but then you like, oh my God, then they're taken. And you're like, oh, but you told me this is not, I'm not supposed to, for example, I'm not supposed to have full lips, but now everybody getting bow ties. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not supposed to have like full figure. That's the wrong thing to do. But now everybody wants that. They pay thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to look like that. So it's a trick. Or, hey man, your skin is ugly, but then people go get tans. Like, I'm so confused. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the thing. That's the trick that happens. And you just like, if I just took the perspective of, if there's like a being, right? Some people believe that there's a being in control of everything that is happening, right? Whatever, right? Then how come this is happening to people and you allow it to go there?
Facial expressions, they
handshakes
that don't equate.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So like, I agree. I agree with you
during quarantine, check my cell and it barely rung. Only heard from once that I placed my call, blood thicker than water. That narrative is false. Don't call him your dog because you gave him a bone. You didn't need it for your fam. If God called you home, then in isolation. Got my thoughts racing. Is it me or the one I chose to put my faith in?
It is.
You can only control how you feel and how you react. You can't control what others do. You can only control how you react. So it all goes back to yourself. And I mean, that's real interesting in your perspective on not being human.
Yeah, and there's a certain. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you good.
Sorry, the truck, the outside stuff.
Hey, we got real people.
What happened?
I said we're real people and real people things are going on. So, don't worry about it.
They trying to kill my dream like
James and it made me lose my thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I agree with you, like on the, I didn't think about that before, about like being and having a human experience versus the opposite.
I'm an artist, sensitive about my shit.
Part of an experience that a piece goes,
maybe if I sent
energy
emojis and gifts, they couldn't smell the
that's
real
why
if it was right up
the shell of ourselves seems to,
we
get older and it gets weaker, but it doesn't. Energy cannot be destroyed, just transferred.
Not at all. And to even add to that, we're so magical that we can manifest.
Right.
We could manifest. We could create our own reality. Right. If you think of, a lot of people, they use lists, right? They have to put your list of goals, when you want to do it, work towards it, and then it happens.
Right.
The world's sweetest poison.
So, and again, it's easier said than done because you have all of these different distractions and things that will come into place. But again, when you tap in within yourself, and you understand that, okay, this is a distraction here, this is what I'm gonna do, this is a distraction right here, all right, this might be something that I need to work on, and you continue to work towards that.
Chick-fil-A and more veggies for the kid. Can I live? Trying to be here for my great grands. Skin straight, swear to God, I'm a changed man. From this moment, I'm striving for atonement. Can't rely on doctors, no diabetic comas. Had to refocus. This battle I can't lose. Snap back from the trap. I got more living to do.
And so when things happen and I share, they're like, "Oh, thank God." And I'm like, "Yes, thank God, thank me."
Right.
And again, it's no judgment. It's whatever works for you.
Yes.
Right? Whatever works for you, right? Because if it's working for you, then it's for you, right? It's that moment when things are not working for you and you continue to suffer and you continue to be like, why God? Why God? Why God? God, I invite you to change the narrative.
Right. That makes sense, right? And so I don't think you noticed, but like, the title of my album is called S.C.A.R.S That Never Heals, right? And S.C.A.R.S stands for situations come and reality shifts. So like that's the basis of everything. Like we walk these paths and then we deal with these different situations. So one thought process we may have had when a situation comes shifts our reality. And so then what do we do? You know what I'm saying? So how do we still got to keep going, because the end result is we keep going until we can't anymore. Right? So you just be able to figure out like, okay, when my reality shifts, I am prepared to deal with this. And so that's all you do. And all the preparation is within you.
Yes, you stand strong with it, because perception is reality.
Right. Right.
And we have conflict with people because we try to convince them that no, what I'm saying is right.
Is the right thing.
I'm saying what this book is saying right here is right.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's like perception is reality. And if you stay true to that and you work hard to whatever it is that you want, you can have whatever it is.
Right. Okay. That makes perfect sense. So, I like to thank you. Also, can you let everybody know where they can find you? What you got playing coming up next? Yeah.
And so, right now, so I'm in the creating of my new Instagram page, but and my Facebook and all that. So it's just my regular name, Liz Maldonado on Facebook, Chill Liz on IG.
Okay.
I recently got my LLC. So
congratulations.
Thank you. It's called I Am Frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal is to assist people with aligning their energy so they could understand the magic that they have within.
Right.
So that they could achieve their dreams and their goals. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much. Once again, I am your host, MIC. This is another one of my status quotables, the S.C.A.R.S That Never Heals edition. I'd like to thank Miss Liz Maldonado for all her help and all her insight, in changing my thought process on things that I was just thinking within this conversation. So until next time, peace.